Well, if everybody does that. There are no changes we need to make?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We need to approve the minutes from May 6th. If no one has any changes or comments, we can hear a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Staff report, is there any?
Yes, a couple of things. We are still working on the design guidelines updated with our consultants and archives and history, and we should have a draft ready for you guys to view and comment on. We're also going to be providing it to design professionals in the area, and it'll be for public comment towards the middle of the month. And we'll send you guys a detailed email when we have that ready with all the instructions. We'll send it out to you. We'll probably have a week to receive comment, and then we'll have a public hearing, probably at either a meeting of this commission or at the other preservation commission, which both commissions and all the design professionals will be invited to. So we're moving forward on that. So just keep an eye out on that. And then I sent you guys a date for several dates for trainings by Archives and History. The one in New Albany is closest. Stuart has offered to attend you'll help us keep our funding so we can do more projects like the design guidelines update. So, great, that's it from us.
All right. Public hearings, case number 453. COA requested by Harrison Square Tavern for addition and renovation to existing yard at the Harrison Square.
Yes, so the applicant seeks approval to expand the existing turf, build a new bathroom building, relocate an existing stage and existing cabanas, and to build 2 new bars on the existing site located at 1210 Harrison Avenue. We're all familiar with the site, but right now about 2/3 of it is the current Harrison yard, and then there's about 1/3 of it that's gravelled, and they're looking to expand to take up that entire lot. If approved, the entire area will be turfed and the existing chain link fence will be extended. The applicant is proposing new landscaping on the east side to provide screening for the newly relocated stage and bars. The existing stage is currently located on the north side of the site and it will be moved to the east side with a new bar constructed on each side. Ben, maybe do you want to share it? I didn't share my screen. I have it pulled up on Chrome if you want to pull it up. A new bathroom building will be constructed on the southwest corner of the site. The material for all new structures is board and batten siding, wood, post and beam, and metal roofing, all materials that are existing on the site currently. The applicant has agreed to place siding on the back of the stage, which is now going to front South 14th, to improve the appearance of the stage compared to how it exists now. I think right now it has a fabric backing, so this would be something a little bit more substantial. As stated in prior staff reports, staff does not believe that this concept negatively affects the existing resources in the Courthouse Square district. The bar is much lower than the primary buildings on the square, so the new items won't be highly visible from the downtown core. Should the commission find that the proposal is sufficiently compatible with the design guidelines, staff is recommending approval of the COA. And Griffin is here, if anyone has questions for him. Thanks for sharing that, Ben.
And just one other element to this site that we're still kind of working through, and that's a land development code consideration, which is kind of separate from what y'all have to review and administer the code or the design guidelines. One of the elements there is structures that front towards a public street are supposed to have front-facing architecture, so it's supposed to look like the front side of a building. This is a unique situation here because this isn't really a building. It's an accessory structure, which also presents another element. So we're trying to peel back the layers of this onion and try and figure it out. It's possible, likely, that it may require a variance, because we don't know that this is an architectural front. I think we can all agree that is the case. I don't know that. It's a unique circumstance, and that's why we have variance for relief from some provisions. So maybe something the planning commission has to consider as part of the variance request. So I just want to make sure that y'all are aware of that.
My name is Griffin Tanner. I'm a representative of Harrison's. Good to see y'all again. It's been a little bit. And any questions?
All right, I'll open it up to the commission. Questions, comments?
I move we approve.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I got one question. Griffin, is the side of the stage going to be the existing material or is it going to be the boards?
So what we submitted to you in the other picture was pretty much a similar board and batten. We did add the windows, I guess, to make it look like the front of a building. They're just going to be fake. It currently is a vinyl wrap that's partially weatherproof, partially for sound. I think we may have had some complaints about the look of that, so that's why this is what we're throwing at it.
Thanks.
Well, I would just comment that I think this is probably still temporary in nature,
Right.
from what I understand. It looks like the backside of a building on a public street. And so me personally, I would have said I think it needs to be dressed up more than what it is being on the street. I think that you're gonna have to address that when it comes to the planning commission, likely. From a historic perspective, I mean, I feel like, is it approvable? I guess, you know, but I don't think it's a wonderful looking, I mean, you say it's not a primary structure or function, but it kind of is for what Harrison Square is. I mean, I don't know that you can call this an accessory structure, but that's for y'all to work through in planning commission. I would have said as a historic commissioner, I think this needs to be dressed up a little bit more on the street.
What would have been some of your suggestions?
Well, that'd be for you and your designer to work through, right? I have to stop short of that, but board and batten and some fake panels to look like windows, I don't think is presenting an architectural front on a public street.
Okay.
We don't have any guidelines for temporary structures, do we?
Well, it's kind of like what is temporary.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think Mr. Griffin's told us before that he's leasing that piece of property when he was here before. Isn't that right?
That's correct. It's Chan Patel's property. He tells me every year he's building a hotel there. I don't know which year that'll be, but I continue to move forward. It sounds like he has some traction and is submitting plans. In my mind, I've got 2 more years to try and make money there. Might be 4, I don't know.
Yeah, my thought was it still remains temporary, subject to
Yeah,
the lease.
I don't think I'll be there in 10 years, but we'll see.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
Thank
You're
you.
approved. All right, next we have a complimentary review requested by the Land Shark for exterior addition and fencing for property located at 430 South Lamar Boulevard.
yeah, I'm gonna let the applicant present since it's complimentary review. We're all familiar with the Abner site. It's listed as not contributing in the district.
Did you bring the model, Tom?
I made the physical model.
I know, I love it.
I didn't make the digital model because you have to be younger and smarter to do that. Yeah, I made the mass model that illustrated the idea.
Yeah, it was cool.
This project is come about because the Abner's has had, was a drive-through business that was dependent on car traffic and accessibility. Obviously, anybody else who wants to follow up with an establishment that serves food and particularly beer and liquor would want to take more advantage of the opportunities the site affords. So Land Shark wants to cover the entire parking lot, and their idea was to come out where there's a little canopy over the glass right on the existing Abner's building that's, I think it's 12 feet high above the parking, and their idea was to bring that roof all the way out to the street. And I said, I think we can do something better than that. So the idea is to use the cellular beams and this bow truss here to have structure that light gets through, ventilation gets through. It is going to be an outdoor space, but we're trying to cover everything. And we obviously have to have increased restrooms. So if you saw the floor plan, you would see the restrooms that we've added to that, and they're also featured in one of our views, but that may be more a matter of labeling than anything else, because the view of the restrooms is really a view of a secondary bar that is there to let patrons, when they arrive at the venue, get their first drink, and then the major bar is right there. Okay, and there's the menu. So this view there is of the bar that is attached to the restroom wing, that is an extension of the 2 restrooms that are there that we added 20 years ago or whatever. However long ago it was that we did Abner's work. And then, so the main portions that are in between the barrel vaulted space have got sloped roofs. One of our technical challenges that we anticipate for, and there's a view of the main bar, which is on the diagonal axis to the intersection. One of the challenges that we were going to have, obviously, is stormwater detention, and so that requirement, that's going to come when we get to the Planning Commission, and it hasn't been engineered, but the concept is to collect all of the rainwater that is on these new roofs, and through gutters and downspouts, divert all that rainwater into vertical silos that are actually culvert pipe. And the way they're represented here is 4-foot diameter, 12 feet high, which is the lowest height of the new beams that we propose, those cellular beams, which are the ones that have the holes cut in them, which is if you're a geek like I am, it's kind of an interesting process the way they work, because they take a heavy beam that may be this deep, and they put a bunch of them, line them up with a gang of laser cutters, and they cut the semicircles out of the beams, and then they take them and shift them and weld them back together so that they're taller than they were before, which makes them lighter. The performance of a steel beam is affected by how heavy the steel is and also how deep it is from the top to the bottom flange. So they become very efficient. But in our case, the reason they're appealing is they let daylight in, and they're a lot more, they're not as ponderous and heavy looking as an ordinary wide flange section. So all of the water is diverted into these vertical water storage columns, I'm calling them, and they're in groups of 3 with the exception of at the intersection where there are 5 of them. And we don't have to introduce water into each one because they're all tied together with manifolds, and the water level will rise equally in all of them. And then one or more of them will have a discharge system that allows us to detain that water and release it at a rate that conforms to the requirements of the city's code for stormwater detention. But we are choosing to make that explicit, number one, because most of those systems are buried in the ground, or else they're open, dry ponds on a site. We're trying to optimize and fully utilize the site, and we're also trying not to demolish the concrete paving that is already there. So rather than putting all of that infrastructure in the ground, we're putting it vertically above ground and using it to sort of as an exhibit to show people what's going on and what every other building that is built has to do some other way. So happy to answer any questions. But we're looking for feedback, and the reality is I didn't anticipate we would get as far along in this project as fast as we have, but by your submittal deadline, we weren't nearly far enough along for me to put in an application that we felt confident was worth voting on. So at this point, I'm looking for feedback rather than approval.
Are you wed to these culverts, Tom?
Big pardon?
Are you wed to what basically I call a culvert?
Am I wedded to them?
Yeah, I mean, is that really what you think you need to have as far as design? Because it really looks like a 4-foot culvert out in the delta.
Yeah, it does. And, of course, these are not going to be raw galvanized steel. My proposal is that they be painted with epoxy paint. I should have brought an example of what that looks like. We did a tower, kind of a memorial tower at the North Mississippi Veterans Cemetery that's all steel, and and we had to have some sort of weather resistant coating. So we used a silvery kind of epoxy paint. It's not as bright as new galvanized steel is when it's brand new, nor is it as dull as old galvanized steel is as it weathers. But what it is consistent. These have been up for about 6 or 7 years, that tower, and it looks like the day it was erected. And the circular form of the culvert satisfies a lot of vertical efficiencies as it does when they're used horizontally. You know, it's an efficient way to hold a lot of water. The round form is structurally efficient. It's a readily available material that is that can be deployed in this way, and really, just as you would say, you know, a concrete block or a brick is not a particularly attractive thing in and of itself, but when you put them all together and you add some screening, and then, you know, what we're doing is adding vegetative screening on the street side, and on the inside we're mounting large TV displays so that they'll be there, but they're kind of part of the structure as opposed to the skin, although they are in essence the skin. The other thing is we have to, for licensed premises, have to limit access. We have to secure the premises. And so we're, you know, ambivalent about how much visual access we want to provide in both directions. I mean, in some ways we want to provide privacy, but in some ways we're trying to provide privacy for the passersby as much as we're trying to provide privacy for the people inside, because, you know, a sports bar, which is essentially what we're looking at, can be rowdy. You know, we're wanting to achieve a balance of seeing what's going on and also not being obnoxious either way. I mean, the traffic on University of North Lamar, especially when you got a pickup truck that, you know, the trunk is here, so all the engine noise is up here. You know, we can't erect a wall that's high enough and dense enough to screen that noise out of the courtyard, which is a bigger problem across the street for the hotel than it is for this venue. But it's the same sort of thing.
Yeah, Tom, I think that your considerations are sort of different from ours. You have to worry about all of those things. We just have to worry about what it looks like and does it fit into the design guidelines. That's a lot of cisterns, silos, culverts, whatever. Do you really have that much water coming off?
Like I say, we haven't engineered it. What I did was took the reason we got to this calculation is I looked at the amount of stormwater detention that we had to do at Funky's, and I took the roof area of that, which is a tiny little building, and multiplied that by the area of the site that we're dealing with here. And then I added some margin. So this is probably the most we would need.
It just looks like a lot.
But
I'm just saying,
architects,
wow.
architects don't do stormwater calculations. I don't know, Stuart may, but we
I mean,
don't.
appearance-wise, I think it's a whole lot. I don't think that's what I want to see when I drive from South Lamar onto the square. I think it's really industrial looking. I know this is, you know, you don't want to make it look like old Oxford or anything like that. You've got to put it in 2024. I think it's too heavy. And I don't know, I mean, it's those big culverts
what
in the
we're-
front.
what-
And I understand that,
What we're responding to here is the fact that, you know, the history of the intersection of Lamar and University is 4 gas stations on the corner. And now we've got a fancy hotel, we got a fancy bank, but Chevron's still there. It's evolved into a 2024 kind of gas station. And Abner's is what used to be a
I
gas
understand.
station there.
I understand.
So,
I do. Where you're coming from. Yeah, it's very clever. I think it's clever and thinking out of the box. I think that we as a commission need to think about its orientation, whereas the bank and the hotel are both squared to the corner. This is the same orientation that Abner's was, but it's pushed up so much closer to the street that just becomes more obvious that it is catty corner. And it seems looming. It evokes a shark, as I think you might have been trying to do.
oh no,
Is
I
that,
didn't even think of that.
To me, it looks like a shark.
Street sides instead of the, the street sides are, and of course, these are also perspective drawings, so they're not, that roof, which you're looking at, looks steep because of the perspective. We're up the street on it looking down, where these aren't a flat elevation. We might do better, actually, to look at the elevation drawings.
This is your pedestrian entry, right, on this side?
Yes, the pedestrian entrance is on Lamar, but of course there's got to be egress on the University Avenue too. So they're similar on both sides. But if you can see the lower roof there, that beam is at 12 feet. And so it's a 3.5 foot beam depth. So that roof is 15 feet above the sidewalk, so it's not that large. Now the one that you see beyond is larger because we were giving it freeboard below its carrying beam, so we get additional light into the space. And we could certainly tighten that up some and bring the scale down. And the other thing we were thinking is, on this aerial view, which is generated more than anything to illustrate the geometry of the building. This being straight across, we were talking about actually rounding that off so that it's a little more graceful in turning that corner, and it would reduce the apparent scale of it. It would make the roof look a little steeper because it'd be, actually it might make it look flatter because we'd have a longer arced line instead of a straight line across the curve section, so that it would appear flatter.
I'm not an architect by any means, but looking at I think the design is super cool. I just don't know if it's for the square. But like where the rectangles are, where you have, like where the silos are behind it, you were gonna block it with a screen. I would just be curious to see what it would look like if you turned that screen, if you made it almost a solid steel, not whatever material, and that way you wouldn't have the circular silos. It wouldn't be so
And you may have seen, if you saw the photographs of the model that I built in the first place, it did have that. What I was proposing there was, instead of a lower wall with the iron fence above it, we had a higher wall, and then I was jumping the wall up, covering the entirety of those cylinders on the outside, so you'd have a lot more stone or brick showing. And we could do that. I think that when we spend all of this money solving a functional problem of stormwater detention, it's important to illustrate what is required to achieve that to people. And
Do you think it's worth mentioning that before the Mayor Board of Aldermen tomorrow will be a second reading and a public hearing of a modification to the ordinance and the requirements for stormwater detention, where I think that there's definitely a relaxation of those requirements.
Some relief coming our way.
yeah, well, in that case, we could change the scale. That would change the scale of what we're having to do in terms of, because when I first started out, I had these columns as 2.5 feet wide, so 30 inches instead of 48 inches in diameter. And the proportions of something like that are vastly different. I mean, it's like a fat person versus a tall, thin person, and we love fat people too, but, it's not what you see on the covers of the magazines, So, but yeah, if the city is gonna change its contract with the developers, then I think that this response would not be what we would do. We would be much more, it would be less ham-handed.
I think it'll affect volume, it won't make it go away. The changes.
Yeah, I mean,
Taking us to 100-year versus,
yeah, and the difference between a 30-inch column and a 48-inch column, as everybody knows, is, you're increasing at a squared rate rather than a multiple rate, so.
So complimentary, we're just to give feedback, we're not taking any action. We've heard feels too industrial. We've had the stormwater cisterns question, no elaboration on that. I'm gonna go back to Andy on that. Too heavy and looming.
We haven't talked about building materials yet, but it's not consistent with the rest of the historic district, and I'm sure you thought of that when you did it, and I just don't know that that's really complying with the guidelines that we have to look at.
Yeah, I mean, it is taking off from what we had at Abner's, which was done before there was a preservation ordinance here, and also it is not like the square, but I would also maintain that this site is not technically like the square itself. It's
right, and a big difference there is that it's really not to be looked at by a pedestrian. Once you're a pedestrian, you're going in, you're on it. I think, and Amanda said this earlier, it's when you drive up, that's when you're gonna really see it. That's our view is from a car.
Yeah, and the big part of the difference is that as a pedestrian, you're not seeing all this stuff that's going on. One of the things about digital models is you tend to see a lot of form that is not what you see when you're a pedestrian walking along the street. And toward that end, I think some of the interior images give you a better idea of what that space feels like. And similarly, I mean, and that's the enclosed space. So, on the outside, as looking at that as architectural form rather than as architectural space, it's even more smaller scale.
Tom, you put like trees in front of the silos as if you're trying to cover them up. Is that what you're
They're
trying to do?
vines. I mean, the idea is to soften them, and and we haven't solved the problem of how much soil medium are we going to be able to carve out to have.
Yeah, I just
to
thought they were
support
kind of
those.
part of the design and that you were not needing to cover it up. But
No, we're trying to have a medium between expressing this industrial aesthetic, which is not really what we're going for. But so we're softening it too. But I mean, we're not gonna be able to do it with wooden staves and barrel forms. Be nice if we could do it like the skyscraper water towers in New York City, of the 30s and 40s, but
and the circles at the top of the roof, did you say those are to let in light?
yes, I mean, these are a type of structural shape. They're cellular beams is what they're called, and they have others that are called castellated beams, where they, instead of cutting out circles, they cut out hexagons. But what they do is they make the steel more structurally efficient, but they also let in light, breeze, and it's also for the interior structural members. It makes it easier to run utilities. You can run the sprinkler pipes through the structure instead of beneath the structure. So it helps make the whole, when you get lighting and sprinkler systems, infrared heaters and things like that hung up there with all of the utilities that serve those, it gives you a cleaner looking building inside.
There's some commissioners we haven't heard from. I'll give an opportunity if they want to speak up. If not,
Tom, how high is that middle ceiling roof in comparison to the chevron?
It is taller. You can, the chevron, I suspect, has got a elevated height of 14 feet clear, which is what bridge overpasses are on the interstate. This lower one is at 12 feet, and the higher one is, its bearing height is about 7 feet above that. So, the bottom of the upper beam? No, it's because we've got space above the top flange, so it's another 3 feet above that.
Tom, when you were talking about the vegetation on that side, were you saying that was going to be artificial?
No, that wouldn't be
I heard
artificial,
vinyl.
but it's got to be. There'll be limited options because we've got a southern and eastern exposure there, and it's.
I mean, yeah, if any options really.
I mean, that's something that the Chancellor's House, some of you may remember the Chancellor's House, they attempted to grow vines on the university side and didn't really have much success.
Yeah, I mean, the system that I think works for a place like this is a vertical wall system where you actually have plants that you plug into cells and they'll grow. But the secret there is a high maintenance regimen. You have to take them out and, take them back to the greenhouse, let them come back to life while you bring others in. So that's not going to survive here.
so I guess first, Tom, the drill. When you come back in, we'll ask that you please present this and make your case according to the guidelines that we are to determine this by, right? Scale, massing, proportion, rhythm, all of these things that we are supposed to judge new construction by as to how it fits into historic square. Granted that we don't have a lot of contributing historic buildings around us, but it still is a historic square that we're reviewing on the whole. And that's the way I will determine, that's the way I'll try and lead the commission to make their determination, but couched in those requirements.
That can be done as like a narrative.
Yeah, as a narrative, right, I mean, however you want to do it, right?
Yeah,
So for me, as I go through those, you know, there are some that I feel like checks the box, and some that I feel like don't. The ones that I'm struggling with are proportion and massing. You know, it being of its time, I celebrate that. I like that it's a contemporary look. Although I will always remember a line you had on Funky's case where I asked you if you'd considered making the addition something more contemporary rather than sort of sliding into the same architecture. And you said, I've learned there are appropriate times to exercise my modernist demons and inappropriate times. And you felt that was an inappropriate time. I'll always remember that line. You know, this one is very much exercising the modern, the contemporary, I'll say not modernist, but for me, the structure of it, I don't have a problem with it being contemporary or modern personally, but the structure of it is so imposing. It can be done with a lot lighter structure, what you're trying to do.
yeah, it could be all done in aluminum and it would really look like a gas station canopy there.
Well, I don't think it has to be aluminum, but it's just that the large sections of steel, and I think that if I'm trying to channel some of what I'm hearing from other commissioners.
Well, part of that is, and again, it's not, to be honest, engineered yet. But the uplift on this thing is going to be substantial, and it's going to take, you know, the problem isn't holding it up, it's going to be holding it down. And so, and also some of those spans are 50 feet. And I'm trying to avoid putting a bunch of columns in the space that are really not necessary.
I understand, and as it was said before, those are your things to struggle with. We just have to look at it with our things to struggle with. And so my feedback would be that I feel like the canopy structure is too heavy and looming. I'm okay with contemporary, but it's too heavy and looming, and yes, maybe even a little, to me, a little too industrial feeling for that corner. The cisterns I also immediately zeroed in on as just feeling like that it was just probably inappropriate for a historic square, especially such an important corner. And I understand what you're struggling with, and like was said before, take this off the historic square. I think it's such a cool design, an innovative solution to what you're doing. I think that it's a very, very neat solution. I just personally don't feel like it's there for our square.
If I could ask a couple more specific questions. One of the things we're representing here is a stone wall, and one of the reasons for that is the owner's father is a stone mason, and he is, for emotional reasons, if nothing else, would very much like to see that done in stone. We know most people are going to say, well, brick is the go-to material in Oxford, but we do have some stone buildings. You know, we've got the Church of Christ, which is stone, and, you know, which, in fact, I think that's Tishomingo stone that they used on that one, which is, you know, what this one looks like. So I don't know what.
I'm gonna be honest, I never even saw this stone.
Yeah.
I guess it was.
Well, that's why I wanted to call your attention to it, because I wanted to get a.
I didn't even notice that. I guess I was too focused on.
I didn't see this.
So commissioner specific feedback on stone, anybody?
Where is it?
It's at
The bottom.
little wall going around. I mean, to me, I think it's such a minor part of it compared to the rest of it.
Yeah.
That's a minor thing to solve for compared to my feelings, and I think everybody's feelings on the rest of it. But I would rather probably see brick, but I wouldn't vote against it because of stone. I mean, I think brick is probably more appropriate. But
Okay. We'll dial back the bombast and come back.
I think you already described dialing it back when we talked about the orientation, and part of it is emphasizing that it's catty corner because it's so close. But then you described that you were thinking of pulling it back, and I do think that would help with the
Yeah, well, and
looming
also,
is a good word.
and also, if you see the cellular beam, that's the end beam there, how that's rounded, that's what we're talking about doing to the roof itself, so that it would, you know, it would recede a little bit. But I think we can, perhaps, you know, we can certainly lighten up some of the structural members because they're not all carrying the same load, but usually what you want to do is just make them all the same height, even if the, you know, web is different thickness and flanges can be different thicknesses, but so that it's doesn't create problems for erectors for doing that, because we've got beams going in multiple directions on all of these.
Tom, I'm trying to make it congruent with across the street. You may remember when you were on the commission, we spent a lot of time about pushing back what is now the Oliver to push it away from the corner. So one, for just public safety, but two, so you're not immediately hitting a building when you come onto the square, starting from University. I'm getting some of that claustrophobic effect right here on the corner. Is there any way you can push that back?
Well, the reality is that the reason that angle is there is to pull the entire building back. I mean, if you look at the site plan, the property corner, you know, property corner is way up there where the point is. So this angle is a response to the idea that we need to provide visual access for traffic safety and every other reason. We're also trying to help solve probably one of the worst pedestrian corners in this city. There may be worse ones, but I don't know where they are. You know, there's the big traffic signal pole. There's a fire hydrant. There's a planter there, and so we're trying to pull all of that back, and even where you see the dotted eaves of the roof that extend, you know, that's where I was talking about rounding that form. But we've held back already a good bit from the corner. Now we're not making this is a plaza, but it's a covered plaza, and they at the Oliver now, it's that space is, you know, revenue generating, but you know, the feeling here is that it needs to be covered in order to be revenue generating. It's not like they don't have as much interior space as the Oliver does. They're not.
Somebody close to the corner, Tom. Just to be real honest, I'm gonna do a Pat Patterson on you. I love you, but it's real close to the corner.
You can't do that. Pat and I will go way farther back than you and I do, about at least another 15 years.
Just saw him driving around. I know what you're limited on. I'm just letting you know concern, Tom.
Yeah, well, we done pulled it back. Okay.
Tom, at our last meeting, we had some discussion about the potential for a temporary version. Is that something that you anticipate coming forward before the commission?
I think that may be on the table when we come back, because, you know, obviously I've got a client who is if he's not paying rent yet, is going to be paying a lot of rent soon, and he doesn't have a way to make money at it. So part of the idea is if we can, and the lead time for steel is kind of unpredictable, but it's not tomorrow. It's never fast. So he's not going to be able to begin construction on this, and he wants to be open for the football season. But he needs bathrooms and he needs enclosure. So it may be that when we come back next month, what I want to ask y'all about is not just what we're going to do long-term, but can we look at getting the bathroom expansion and the enclosure wall approved so that he can go ahead and do an initial phase that lets him get open. We haven't negotiated how he would operate undercover or in an open space for, you know, the football season. It might be that there would be temporary tents or something like that, much like some of the restaurants are doing with covered, like St. Leo's got those tables under awnings, that sort of thing. I suggested that he get, you know, scaled up 20-foot square pop-up tents and giant cutouts of oak trees and make it like a miniature grove.
Well, let's talk
He
real
didn't
quick.
bite on that. I actually thought it was a pretty good idea.
Knowing that we're looking at the side of the bathroom, is there feedback on materiality for that bathroom? We haven't talked about that. That
Yeah.
they're taking the existing metal that's on the building and continuing that on the new, I think is the.
That's right. That's what we're proposing. And it may be that, you know, because Abner's has got both brick and metal, that we could certainly add some brick to that.
So is there
or we could do it all in brick, but I think if it was all in brick, it wouldn't look as good as if we did it in a mixture.
So is there reaction from the commission on materiality for that? And is that even allowed by ordinance? I mean, is it considered an accent?
Is it considered
Because doesn't ordinance say no metal siding? I'm moving beyond
a
historic.
special exception?
Special exception, okay.
Run that by me one more time.
The land development code stipulates that metal buildings may be allowed by special exception only, so conditional use.
Okay.
So that would be something that we have to take into consideration. I was also sitting here looking at the front facing architecture of that building, and that might, you know, I don't know if there's gonna be windows, spandrel glass or something like that out there, but that's something that you might need to take into consideration
For which building are you talking
for
about?
the addition to the bathrooms.
Well, you know, when I go to any of the world's major capitals, it's hard for me to imagine building without metal skin. I understand Oxford wants to keep metal buildings from being built in town.
We've approved plenty
I know.
of buildings that incorporate metal.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, but especially here where you've got a commission whose job it is in part to rule on appropriate material
Yeah,
selections.
so that's a good segue back to us. Then we can give some useful feedback to them now, considering that they're thinking about potentially phasing it, building that as a standalone attachment. Can we give feedback now on our feelings about the materiality?
Where is the bathroom? Okay. Help me out.
That's that right there.
Okay. So, I mean, if you're walking in the existing door to the right, effectively?
No, there's a view in here which maybe we should zoom in on that interior view.
Thank you.
So that's the bathroom wing. You know, the first part, the first 8 feet or so of that is is the existing bathroom wing, which is all done.
Is that brick, is that Tom Davis's building right there?
It's not.
On our side, this is the brick that's on
Okay.
Abner's building.
That's what I think I would
Prefer
rather
to see.
see is the brick. The metal, I think, me personally is fine for the inside, but I would rather see brick on the.
And we might need to do that, it might make sense to do that on the backside, because we're very close to the property line there. We probably need to, for fire protection reasons, that's probably gotta be at least a 2, maybe 4 hour walk. So,
So maybe a combination of the.
so if we're gonna
middle
use
and-
block, I'd rather cover it with gray.
I do appreciate that y'all are watching Ole Miss football on that.
I'm glad you picked up on that.
I do appreciate that.
But, I'm not sure that it's the same play on every screen. Yes, it is.
Maybe not, it's not.
So it sounds like brick would maybe be appreciated, at least on the street-facing facades, but a mix of metal and brick would be considered. You know,
I mean, even,
That's what I was
Even
kind
in
of
the
thinking about,
front.
covering those silos. I don't know what it would look,
silos are what gets me.
me too.
That's my biggest issue is those
me too, actually.
things right
too.
there.
I honestly thought it was
I
new
just-
And the roof.
brewery
The
coming to
metal
town.
And the orientation.
I mean, I don't like the metal or
Silos
the.
with TVs on them. If you see, you can see we've got the stone on the inside, we've got the stone coming out there.
Why not that?
And then the, big
If
TV.
he's a stonemason, maybe he would like to.
I'm sorry, I did that.
I know. I just.
Could you not cover the front with the stone and the silos show on the inside?
That's what I
I think that would be a lot as well. I
It
think
would
that
be a
would
lot. It would be a lot.
Yeah, I think then y'all might have concerns about how much stone we got.
Right, I agree.
I agree too.
I mean, I just think it's too much in the front.
Well,
I'm
maybe
just trying to picture it in
Why
my
not be
head.
able to see in a little bit more? See what's going on, see if you wanna go
Oh.
in there.
I guess I would say that, if we think about this as a building envelope, we would have a rhythm of storefront and solid wall, storefront and solid wall. And that's, if you can decouple yourself from it being culverts, and think of it as an opaque section of wall and a storefront, it's conceptually the same thing. It's just that it's not wall and storefront, it's opening and cisterns. I think that for me, it just comes back to the industrial nature of, which is a very creative solution. I think it's really cool. But here at this location, for me, I have a hard time with it.
Well, let's talk about real money. He is about to have to start paying rent and trying to get open for the fall. So beyond the bathrooms, what else, Tom, do you need to get him open?
He'll need bars,
I mean, so is there anything
so-
we can talk about here today that can help you?
Well, we have these concepts for bars that are out there now. They would clearly have to be covered. This one is the one that's right behind the silos that are at the intersection.
Right.
And the other one is just against the bathrooms, the bathroom wing. So those, would probably be metal of some kind, but they might be plastic laminate or some kind of material that we can use. Might have to use sheets of solid phenolic resin or something to get a bar that can take the kind of weather. Of course, bars get a pretty good abuse even if they're indoors, so.
But that's all temporary.
Well,
Hopefully
I
less
think
temporary than
probably
Harrison's.
what would happen is the bars that would be there at first would be
Okay.
temporary, because there's no,
Yeah.
the other thing about doing it, you can't just leave the bars there while you're doing construction. So you might as well get a temporary bar in there, does the job. It'll probably be a bunch of stainless steel and some things slapped together to cover up some of the stainless steel.
So in this scenario, when you come back, we might be considering a permanent bathroom structure attached to Abner's, and then some sort of temporary tents and bar of
Yeah,
some sort.
and the fence would likely be.
And the fence as permanent, okay.
Would be permanent, although it might not be complete when you look at, you know, what we might need to add to that in terms of creating more of a building-looking structure. And, you know, so taller sections of fencing, wall, that sort of thing, but, you know, maybe right now we would just do an iron fence and not even deal with the
Yeah.
masonry, because there's gonna be a lot of, you gotta put foundations in for those
Yeah.
columns.
You're gonna tear it all up anyway.
For ABC enclosure, right? He needs a fence for the ABC enclosure.
Yeah, he needs legal enclosure for the ABC, but that, again, can come down when it's a construction site. If we just put a temporary iron fence up, then, you know, they can do.
So the perimeter for ABC purposes, you have to have a perimeter around the?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good,
You have to control access and egress.
makes sense.
All right, I think you've gotten a lot of feedback. I don't think it was particularly positive, so it sounds like there's a hill to
Yeah.
climb here. Maybe another complimentary, or maybe an actual application.
I think we're gonna present something actual, even if what we're presenting actually is, you know, just the temporary
Yeah,
part.
right.
I think if they hew to that schedule, and they may know by this time next month what schedule they're hewing to, then I'll have a clearer idea whether I'm asking for approval or asking for a second complimentary on the permanent structure.
Okay,
And your water retention requirements might be really different.
Yeah, I mean, if the city's negotiating, I don't know what the time schedule is that, you're doing a first reading?
Second reading, public hearing tomorrow night.
Oh,
Could be adopted as soon as tomorrow night, depending on that. Usually we adopt on the third meeting, so
Right.
that's the second meeting of this month, right? This is June, second meeting of this month, and so it'd be effective 30 days after that.
yeah, well, we're not gonna be ready 30 days after that, so, you know, that's,
it's essentially cutting volume in half is the feedback I'm getting.
That's my next question, kind of, in novices terms, how much are we cutting? 50%, 40%?
I think it's more of volume contained, so I think it's pretty significant.
Good.
I know it's not answering your question, but I don't wanna gauge something, I can't really speak
That's
to
fine.
exactly the amount, but it's a significant reduction.
Good.
You said 50%,
That's what some engineers have told me, but also off the cuff, so.
considerable.
Good. Thank you, Tom.
All right,
thank you.
thanks, Tom.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, Tom.
Oh, sorry. Complimentary review. Complimentary review requested by Bank Plus for new ATM surround for property located at 400 South Lamar.
So the applicant requests feedback on proposed changes to the storefront at 400 South Lamar. It's Suite C, which is the one in the center. It was formerly Oxford Gourmet and Gifts. An interactive teller machine with custom metal surround would replace the existing front door and side lights, removing the front entrance to the building. The building is a circa 1955, one-story, 9-bay frame with brick veneer, minimal traditional commercial building. It's listed as non-contributing due to the age and heavy alterations to the building. The modification to the storefront would consist of an 8-foot by 8-foot 10-inch tall and 7-foot 3-inch wide aluminum surround, custom fabricated with printed vinyl. So that's like a vinyl wrap that's over that aluminum surround illustrated right there. The bank's name will attach to the surround in 15-inch channel letters illuminated by LED lights. So it's just the Bank Plus, that would be the channel lights. The commission may consider the guidelines recommendations on retaining original storefronts, as well as a section on signage and the use of channel letters as well when giving feedback for this proposal. And I believe we have the Bank Plus representatives right here. If you have any questions for them.
Okay, so yeah, please come on up, but while you're coming up, I'm gonna touch on ATMs and staff can also chime in on this. If y'all remember, I think we set the precedent with a couple ATMs recently to saying that we feel like ATMs on the square should be reviewed by us, lest it become ATMs on every corner or in every storefront. And so that's why this, in some instances, would feel like this doesn't need to be reviewed, but it being historic, we have set that precedent that we feel like these do need to be reviewed and have oversight by the Historic Commission.
Sure. So. Real quick, I'm Brandon Bishop with JBHM Architects. We're the architects on the primarily interior renovation to this project, where Bank Plus is taking their mortgage office and it's becoming their branch. Corey Knighton, the president here in Oxford of Bank Plus, is here as well. Mitchell Signs is doing this surround around the night deposit and the ATM. Everything else was exactly as stated. The image that you see, I will say, though not the signage, which is what we're seeking you guys just your take on. The top there is not completely representative. It is showing, the goal there was to show that the existing signage above that canopy is gone, but of course the supports will still be there, just like on both sides.
Okay.
I think there will be a little bit of issue with signage in that location because the way the code reads for the conservation overlay, it's one wall or projecting sign for each facade that has a public entrance. So you're essentially removing the entrance here. So I don't know how you could have signage in this location since there's already the Bank Plus sign associated with the other entrance. So that's something to entangle with this complimentary review.
Is that for us, or is that more a
It's more of a win.
ordinance planning commission issue? Yeah.
Is it possible for you to put the ATM inside?
Currently, the space is just a tight office space. All I can show you the plans. I know that's not you may not even want to see them because it's not your purview, but currently the space is frankly all used up inside. It's just a tight renovation. Yeah.
Well, you're eliminating a door. I think that's where she's going, altering the frontage.
So you're saying it's gonna have two signs when it should only have, it shouldn't have two?
There's no public entrance to associate the proposed sign with. Does that make sense?
You're basically taking two individual retail centers, turning it into one space. There's one public entrance here.
And where is that? I'm sorry, where is that public entrance?
Under
On the
mortgage?
left-hand side is where you will enter into this bank,
There
this
is
branch bank.
a public entrance
Okay.
around the other side. And there is
That's
signage
correct.
associated with that on that side of the building
Yeah.
elevation.
The lettering that's currently on the side of the building.
So there won't be any lettering above the ATM on the wall?
No, that's not the goal is that where you see Bank Plus Mortgage, that signage will be changed. It is not, again, that is Mitchell Signs purview. It's not what we are coming today to talk about. We were coming for just the, Bank Plus was coming for just the ATM. But you can imagine, since it's not just a mortgage, or it's not the mortgage office anymore, it's the branch bank, that will be altered. But there will be signage over that door, yes.
Over the door?
Over the main door.
Not over
Yeah.
the ATM?
That's correct.
Okay.
But there will not be signage on the canopy over the ATM, I think.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, there will not be signage there, no.
But there will be the little brackets or whatever.
Yes, the brackets will still be there. That was what was kind of wasn't so clear or misinterpreted on that. The brackets will still be there, the words will be gone.
Yeah, that's why I couldn't keep that.
Yeah,
Not the signage just sitting there.
yeah.
So essentially, if they took off Bank Plus, no,
No, they took off the Oxford Gourmet.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that, I'm going back to the ATM, sorry. If
Yeah,
they
we're
just
saying that
took
the
off
Bank Plus wouldn't be able
Bank
to be
Plus,
there.
right, right.
And I guess we don't dictate color.
We can talk about it.
I think we can dictate color, but it's not paint. Some materials we do talk about color.
And, yeah, and location and material.
Yeah. Removal of a storefront for an ATM.
And franchise architecture.
I mean, me personally, I'm not a fan of ATMs popping up in every storefront on the square or really any like this facing the street like that. I would prefer that it at least be turned to the side. If we look at, again, we don't know the plan. I'm just throwing something out there to say that what I feel like would be supportable. If you look at the actual entrance, there's a window inside the alcove. If that window became an ATM, I feel like for me, that's very supportable. Turn it this way with lit letters, looking at the street. I personally have a problem with removing storefront. Recognizing this is not a contributing building, et cetera, but I don't know, I'm not a fan of ATMs popping up in every storefront, personally.
Or
No,
if you
fair.
can spare some room to get it behind closed doors.
Say that again.
If you could spare room on the interior to move it back. You have it.
Like, FNB.
But I'm a chairperson, but I also always try to make sure I'm just a commissioner and I'm one vote. So I want everybody else to give, this is a complimentary, so everybody needs to give their feedback on their opinion on that.
The reality is you need a ATM machine. We may not like them up front, but the reality is that's your business.
Sure.
What you do, so you need an ATM machine. It's unfortunate that you can't park it inside somewhere. I do have a concern about taking out a door,
Okay.
up front, to put one there. I hope we can find a solution for you, because you do need a machine.
Yeah, the bank absolutely needs a night deposit and an ATM. Interesting, I guess, one of the things that it was an interesting comment, we would go back, Corey and I would go back, we would talk to Bank Plus, corporate, but the idea that it could be turned to the side is something that we could potentially, I can't promise, anything either, right? I'd have to talk to my client, but we could look at that. If you're saying that is something that is more agreeable to turn it onto one of those sides, it does, everything at this point, of course, changes the layout of how they've laid out and how we've laid out their interior office. We just want, like I said, we want to hear you guys' feedback about it.
Is that a normal size of an ATM? I mean, it seems awfully large.
I think the goal here was to take the entrance that was there
And cover it up?
and have something to be there so that you don't have some, inevitably, right, if you try to go back in those insets, there's vinyl. And if you try to go back with that siding that's there, you're never going to match it. It's going to look like a patch. So the goal there was to try to do something that did look more appropriate and didn't just look like somebody patched a door.
I do have a general question. I don't know if it's towards Corey, but are y'all going to stay in the location that you're at right now?
Our plan is to not stay there.
Across the street.
So this will be our full retail location.
That was a
Believe it
short-
or not, we're not really adding any more space. That building is super small. And that's, yes, IT and ATM on the front. I think we're only adding one more office space.
Is it too large to locate in the side of the festival?
In the side of the storefront, you mean, where we
Yeah.
were referring to?
Like, where this,
Yeah.
essentially put over here?
I can't speak to that without really looking at it in plan. It's something, that's what I was referring to. It's something Corey and I can take back and discuss you guys' feedback with corporate.
I mean, for me, that's just a little more palatable because it's putting it sort of in an alcove rather than facing the street. I know we're only talking about turning 90 degrees in the same spot, but I don't know, if you need one and you need it on Lamar, I feel like I could personally come around on that. I'd much rather it be around the corner, you know what I mean? But
Then you can keep the door, which helps you with signage.
yeah, whether it's functioning or not, it's storefront. You know, I mean, look, you know, we want that visibility, we want that storefront, even if it's not active, it's active, you know, and this is the opposite direction of that.
Is there another ATM on the square with channel lettering that's illuminated like that? That's gonna be a problem, I think.
Okay.
The only other one I can think of that we approved is behind Uno Mas.
And it was just a little.
Yeah, what other one have we looked at?
That ATMs for Renaissance Bank,
In the,
where they took out the,
In their drive-through.
the drive-through.
Oh, okay.
It's a difference.
Oh, yeah, in the drive.
The feedback would be the fact that it is a lit set of channel letters, or just to make sure I'm understanding where you're coming
All of the above. for
from. All
me
of the above,
personally.
okay.
We've dealt with illuminated signage has been a hot button topic since Rock House Live debacle.
If it was not illuminated, would it change the feedback, or it doesn't matter illuminated or not?
I think it's still problematic for other reasons. I'm just pointing that out as something I think you're gonna have an issue with,
Okay.
aside from the loss of the storefront and anything else that might be identified.
For me, the illumination is the problem for me personally.
That's fine.
Okay.
Any other feedback or specifics you want from us?
Well, the specific, that, what y'all have told us is fine. We're again seeking to know kind of what your feelings were on it, and we can take all this back to the corporate office and kind of let them know what you guys said and go from there. Anything else as far as feedback for us to tell the corporate office?
Thank you for coming.
Yep, sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks.
All right, any more business for commission or staff?
I think, I'm sorry, were you about to?
Yeah, but if,
I think next meeting is like at the like the day before the 4th of July or something like that, or is it not?
it's maybe 3 days before.
Oh, that's fine, then I was thinking, is 4th of July not on a
It's
Tuesday?
a Monday of 4th of July.
When's the 4th of July?
July 1st.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Man,
I'm sorry.
Let's say, who will be in attendance
Not
on July 1st?
I think I am.
I wish I would, but.
no.
hard no here.
Who will be, or you say
Who
will
will
not?
be here?
Who will be?
I will be here, yes.
I'll be here.
So we've got 3 yeses,
Amanda,
1 maybe,
Amanda reluctantly.
2 no's.
I know. I thought it was.
Yep, just move it. I wanna be here for the land shark thing. Too juicy.
It's a pretty important case.
It's, I can't, perhaps the most visible thing. I can't.
I mean, I'm with you. I love the design, just
It's
not
West Jackson Avenue.
I think it's intentional. I think it's intentional.
What, hey,
I think it's a
Let's-
complete overplay.
before we devolve,
Well, I was gonna say, how much water do we have to retain? That's a lot of water.
I think we're talking, what are we talking about?
yeah, let's do schedule first, and then I think absolutely move on.
If Land Shark's coming back, I'll be here.
I think it would be nice to have
Land Shark will be coming back.
a majority of the commission here for that.
So, I don't know if we should move it to like.
What day is the 4th of July? Wednesday?
It's Thursday.
Okay. I mean,
So,
can we
Andy-
meet the next Monday?
Yes,
Or is
sir.
that somebody's in
Got
here?
planning commission?
Monday at noon? I don't know. If you're gonna be out of town, I would assume you'd be out of town all week. Taylor?
I'm out. I get back on like the 11th, I think.
Oh.
So
Well, you're
I'm
just
gone
gonna
for a while.
Can you participate virtually?
that'd be a stretch, I think, but feasibly.
I mean, I do anticipate that Land Shark will be coming back next month, so if you say you're gonna be here 1, 2, 3, 4, and possibly leave would be 5, so we have enough for a quorum.
You won't be here, Dorothy?
July 1st? No, I can't. I'll be in North Carolina.
Would you wanna participate virtually?
I probably could.
So, potentially 6 out of 7.
Okay, so just leave it?
I think, just leave it.
Okay.
Okay.
Kate won't be here, but she'll be virtual.
The internet, at the lake.
Yeah, internet's not working, sorry.
Internet's not working.
Just went down. Yeah.
Okay, it sounded like there was more discussion to be had, but we don't have to have that in official proceedings, so anything else? All right, motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?